Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Roach Wiggle, January 12th, 2023, our first 2023 live stream. Welcome, everybody who's here: Tennyson, Jose, Jojo Macro, Anthony Green, Rhiannon, Snow. Welcome. Happy 2023, everybody. Chain. uh, it's been a hot minute. Kyle the Ants came back, says Satchel. What a great way to move into 2023 with the return of the Ants. Very unfortunate, Satchel. What were the strategies we discussed for getting rid of them? I can't recall some of the advanced strategies. Ants are not usually a problem in Michigan. Fortunately, one of the pros of the state. Eat them. The snakes would probably be okay-ish with some of them on a slice of apple. Yeah, that sucks. I put in for the cleanup crew. This reminds me of Helen 32 ounces from the Florida Keys, where we made the little cups for ant commensal stuff. We had a bunch of pallid roaches that pooped through a screen into the bottom area so that the ant commensals would have something to eat, because a lot of them will eat poop from roaches. And when we put the container down in Key Largo at our campsite thing and came back, maybe it was the next morning, and it was just full of, I think it was big-headed ants, maybe. Yeah, that checks out. Yeah, that that had the big-headed ants had moved in and were obliterating things, and then we just decided, well, we've got all these ant commensals in a container that's full of ants now. I guess this is fine, but big-headed ants don't appreciate some of those ant commensals, so they went about destroying them, or destroying a lot of the ant commensal things. So that's just what that reminds me of, because I remember having some pieces of apple and stuff in the containers at the Helen 32 ounces. But geez, I've been so busy, just getting on top of things. And last week I was sick, still had a bunch of orders to ship, and I still got them out. It was just this little rhinovirus, but man, it screws you up for a day, and then after that you're sniffing and coughing, and that's why we did not do the live stream last week. I was not presentable. I am presentable this week. So, let's see. Catch up in here. Insert one small anteater to deal with the ants. Rhiannon, again, you have to correct me on how to say your name. You wanted to spend $600 on roaches. I think your husband needs some more convincing. I think you should show him some cute macro photos of roach faces up close. Satchel says, I had a plant to the big aquarium from the store with a lot of algae, biofilm on it, and everything in the tank swarmed it to graze. Everything in the tank swarmed it to graze. Pretty interesting to see. I have reinvigorated my interest in my tanks, Satchel, since we've been talking about this via personal communication, but I think it was this time last year, maybe it was February, where I brought up that I had made a aquarium rack to make the bug room more appetizing in the dead of winter, because everything's all dark and gloomy outside, and then going down there, seeing a blob of bright lights and life really draws you in and makes you want to spend more time down there. And so I set up a bunch of tanks, like 15 tanks or something. Let's see, 2 rows of 10, 18 tanks, about 18 tanks last year, and just got them cycling. And I was going to get shrimp for them, like all the mainstream neocaridinea stuff. And I got like some of the blue dreams and put them into a tank that had other invertebrates in it. Should not have done that. Maybe I should have actually taken more care of them or put them into a cycled tank. But anyways, they didn't last very long. But anyways, I ended up with all these cycled tanks that are just full of algae and biofilm and plants. There's some. I bought that fish, the shrimp substrate stuff. The like light. They're not clay pellets. They're like geez, what are those? They're like, I'm gonna just look this up. There's a specific brand that I bought, shrimp substrate. This looks about right. If I check my Amazon purchase it, I think it's this Denerly Shrimp King Shrimp Active Aquarium Soil. All these adjectives. I have to check my Amazon purchase history to make sure. But the weird thing was that it actually may have been Fluval brand, JoJo. The weird thing was that in a couple of these tanks that I got this substrate from, stuff started growing that I did not put in there. Like in the one tank, there's like a big old, what are those? I used to be so big into fish when I was in like middle school, and I knew all of this. It's that floating fern. People grow it aquatic, but it's actually floating, or maybe it's vice versa. Floating fern, water sprite. That's it, water sprite. Get the Latin for that. Jeez, can't even find the Latin easily. Is it Ceratopterus thalictroides? It just popped up in the tank with this substrate. It was not Azolla. I wish I could grow Azolla. I wish I could grow it reliably. I love Azolla so much. But yeah, water sprite popped up in this shrimp tank where I had only added the shrimp substrate. It just must have been contaminated or whatever you want to say. Just a free hitchhiker or something. And then another one, this weird reed-looking thing that Will was trying to identify. Almost looks like what was he saying it looked like? Looked like something in the Cyperaceae. Maybe like a sedgy thing. But that popped up and it grew out of the water and out of the tank. Thank you, Chain, for the tip. Very low nitrogen in the water. That's kind of difficult to do. You have to, or unless put a very heavy nitrogen feeding plant in to change the water chemistry and then keep it very understocked to keep the Azolla happy. So, yeah, I like how the first stream of 2023 is turning into a fish aquarium discussion stream. Interesting. But anyway, so I have all these tanks that are all, perfectly cycled, filled with algae. I've thrown a couple of things that I had outside into them, some mosquito fish. Satchel had sent me some locality Heterandria formosa, the world's smallest live-bearing fish. So put those are in a tank doing well, just pumping out babies. And my Amica splendens started breeding too. Rock phosphate. Oh yeah, that's difficult. The Azolla fixes nitrogen chain. You're right, and then it'll just keep building that nitrogenous thing, the nitrogen in the water. So you have to find some way to something that's going to eat the nitrogen as fast as, if not faster than, the fern can produce it. Sounds like something I could toy around with eventually. I do have one more shelf on the aquarium rack, the very top one. If I really want to make the basement look any more like a fish store, like fish. If I really want to make the basement look more like a fish store, I'd put some tanks on the very top of the whole thing. put another shop light up there. Like there's shop lights on every layer of all the other ones. I didn't even bother to like hang them. They're just resting directly on top of the aquariums. It's worked out fine as it's been. So, but working on, we'll talk about some non-fish stuff that I have. I have a good snail collection going. I've got some, what are those, pond snails from Lake Erie. I saw them a couple of years ago in some mud, and Brandon and I collected some and failed to get them going. Freshwater snails of Ohio. That's how I will look up what species it was. I can't remember what the genus was. Let's see. Scrolling down this list. Here we go. It's probably Limnia elotes from Lake Erie, based on the size and range. And actually, this swamp limnia is pretty cool. I want to go out and find that. That'd be pretty cool. Anyways, so I have a colony of those going. I've got some ram's horn snails from Lake Erie I need to identify, some trapdoor snails, some other ram's horns, some spiny snails from Florida. A lot of nifty little things going in the tanks, and I'm working on breeding those grass shrimp. The what are those from Foster's Loop Road Satchel, I think. Palimonides, and there's like that one, the really common one, Cadiacensis, maybe. Ooh, I just realized this Wikipedia page was updated and it has a little bit of information I might find helpful. Let's see. Larval life was 20 days, 6 distinct larval stages, fed Artemia salina, Nauplius. Or are they generalists, maybe? I'm going to look this up. I got to look at this. These new publications? Kind of looks like it. Let's see. This one is not. This one's from 1969. And this one is from 1963. Okay, well, I got to read through these. Anyways, I put them in the green water setup, and hopefully I can get them going. I would like to have them going. Slowly turning all my friends into fish keepers. Yeah, it's hard to not go overboard with the fish keeping stuff, in the sense that like people want to have a fully stocked tank with 1 billion fish, and it's not that viable. But you can have a fully like reasonably stocked tank with like 1 billion aquatic invertebrates, and it can be perfect. Speaking of non-fish stuff, oh, congrats, Tennyson! Your Pseudophilus had babies. That's great news. Satchel, I fully support your effort to get every single one of Alabama's native aquatic snails, and you should definitely look for. I like the ram's horn shaped ones that have spikes on their shells. Michigan has a couple of those species too. I figure maybe one day I'll just stumble across them somewhere, but I really would like to keep those and get them breeding. Hilariously, I have fed whole large roaches to multiple fish tanks. I have a tank with some clawed frogs in it. I think they're not Levis. I think they're Xenopus borealis, because they're so small and they have the markings on the underside of the legs. I actually haven't seen Levis for sale in a long time. I'm wondering if there have been, with them being illegal in California, and sort of a drop in interest in them because of the popularity of dwarf frogs and the internet, and everybody being like, "Oh, don't make sure you've got this and not a African clawed frog. You want a dwarf frog." I haven't really seen Levis available except for these ones that I picked up last year. And again, I'm pretty sure that they're Borealis, which is neat. But I want Levis again, so I'm probably going to end up buying them from Science Supply Company. I haven't been able to get through to Xenopus.com or Xenopus One. I actually used to personally know the people who ran Xenopus.com. They were based in Michigan. I went to their facility twice when I was in high school. Yeah, I think it was Xenopus One. But they changed the two older ladies who ran it, and they sold the business. And actually, I think they'd asked me if I wanted to buy it. I was in high school, so I was in no position to buy this. 24/7 voice to text. Interesting. I don't think I've sent Xenopus One any messages in quite a while. Oh, I did, and I didn't get a response. Interesting. So, but there's some other places, science supply places that still seem to offer them. Bees are fish in California. What does that mean? Good to see you, Braden. Thanks for popping in. Enjoy the dead stream when it goes up when you have time. Man, I want to read this publication on the Palaemonides. 2 freshwater species. Descriptive phases, decapod orders. Can I get the whole thing? Could log in through JSTOR after all this time. And just reading through this and seeing if there's any information that I can glean. Huh. Obtained from eggs. All larvae treated were obtained from eggs hatched in the laboratory. Individual larvae were isolated in 4-inch stacking aquaria and fed daily either day-old Artemia salina nauplii or in a few instances raw Lake Erie plankton. Okay, they don't say if it was phytoplankton or zooplankton. Yeah, I think I want to read this more, but they were raising them in little petri dishes, individual larvae in individual petri dishes. Jose says that the new law protected bees under the fish category. Okay, you can't harvest honeybees or just all bees? This seems kind of interesting. I'm going to Google that. Are fish bees or bees fish in California? Are bees fish in California? Allie, I am shipping again. And if you are looking at getting anything, I actually have pretty open shipping roster for next week. So it's not a bad idea. To place an order sooner than later if you so desire. Although I don't foresee any delays in the future unless the weather gets really bad again. In September, the California Supreme Court left in place a lower court decision holding that bees are fish, at least for the purpose of protecting them under California's endangered species law. Bumblebees can be protected as fish. California rules bees are fish. State officials classified 4 bumblebee species as fish. Yeah, good luck enforcing that in the places they need it, assuming those species are present in larger cities and stuff like that. Bees are fish. Ridiculous. They couldn't have done something else to do that. They couldn't have like protected an insect as an insect. Yeah, I'm curious what protected as fish means. Allie, I have one last batch of white rot inoculant material available, and then it'll probably be another 1 to 3 weeks before I have more available. So it'd be a good idea if you want to shoot me an email and get that going. Yeah, huh? Bees are fish. I learned something new today. At least in California. Wouldn't be the weirdest thing that goes on in California. I had some things I want to talk about other than the fish stuff. I know I did. Oh, I had a delightful find yesterday. Something I think I've talked about these maybe way at the beginning of the live stream, but I think it was September 2020. I went on a magical collecting trip with Brandon and Will to Monroe. Will was looking for an endemic pseudoscorpion that's only been found in Monroe, Michigan. Very strange. But our search took us off into a woodlot, and we went way back into this woodlot that was very good, intact, native forest and stuff. And we came across a stump that was filled with water. I detail all this in a blog I think I talked about before, but I'm just giving some more context. And I collected some of the stuff that was in the water. There were some cool little beetles that looked like roaches, and beetle larvae that looked like roaches, and accidentally grabbed some moth flies that were there. And this is where the Lepisiodina conspicua moth flies came from. So, but those beetles we later identified as members of the family Scirtidae, marsh beetles, and waited a lot. They were so cryptic. Most of the time, I didn't even realize they were in there because they're very photophobic, and they don't, unless you check on the culture at night, it's very difficult to see how many are in there. And for a while, I thought they had died, and then I tabled the culture and I put it in the back room for a couple of months, and then I had Will go to get rid of it, and then he found a dead adult in there. So I was like, okay, so they matured, maybe they bred, and then eventually threw some food in and saw some larvae again eventually, and it was just this whole thing. And finally, since I've kept that culture, that container going since then, finally yesterday I went to check on it because I was redoing all of my pests and sort of weird quirky bug enclosures or upgrading them, and found in the skirted enclosure an adult skirted, a living adult. The adult that we'd found before was either a poor representative of the color, or it had just degraded so much by the time that we found it. I think Will maybe only found the wings to it. But with an actual adult, was able to get a picture and then identify it. And I feel pretty confident saying that it is this species, Saccodes pulchella. Hello, Paraplenia missionary. So this is I've had this culture of marsh beetles going for, this is going on 2 1/3 years now, only on a second generation. So they're very slow growing, very slow breeding. They don't seem to produce a ton of offspring. Really cool larvae, though. They look like cockroaches. I think it's I'll go on here and read what Bug Guide has to say. There was remarks. Where is it? The multi-segmented larval antennae separate this group from all other holometabolous insects. Images of 13 eastern species. So they have filamentous antennae just like cockroaches do, and their larvae are very roach-like, which is really cool. There's some pictures. If you poke around on Bug Guide under the family, you can see some pictures of scardids, and so they're very cute. But anyway, so I have a culture going. Who knows if they'll actually reproduce? Yeah, Saccodes nuts. So that's all I could think about when I found out that genus name. But anyway, so they're very pretty for a tiny beetle, and they have really cool larvae, and they seem to be very low maintenance, just not very productive. Maybe I'll list them on the site and make a colony available every year and a half, or make a group available every year and a half. But they're pretty cool, and I hope. Again, I did literally nothing last time. I neglected the colony, and it was slated for destruction until we found the dead adult wing and then subsequent larvae. So, I have to be. The evidence suggests that they're doing fine. That I can just keep doing whatever I'm doing in whatever increments I've been doing it, and they'll be fine, and they will keep going forever. I would like to split the culture at some point. Oh yeah, Shane, that's right. You were gonna bring up and look for some species of cockroaches that would be good for your. I can't remember what quirky and awesome name you had for it, for a vivarium. But I can make a list of the Dictyoptera. That was the Dictyoptera. That was it. And I was going to spitball some ideas at you for species that you could utilize that would do well in that scenario. Yeah, I'm good to do that. I wonder if these scardids would work well in some situation like that. The larvae are semi-aquatic leaning to fully aquatic. So that's one of my concerns with the culture actually is I don't really know where they pupate. I found a couple of individuals that had I have some bark pieces there that come up out of the water. I found a couple of individuals that didn't make chambers, but they seemed to have found some pre-existing sort of holes and chambers in the bark, and they kind of nestled in there, and they looked like they were prepupal. But obviously, at least the one that produced that adult at least was able to mature just fine. No idea what the adults eat. They may not even feed at all. But the larvae, they can swim in a weird way, like they crawl on the surface or under the surface of the water. It's really weird, and then they crawl on stuff when they're underwater. It's very surreal. It's unlike any other insect, really. I don't think there's anything you really compare the way that they move underwater to. Like they're quite agile and quite good at burrowing into leaves underwater, which is not something that a lot of things can do. Like they may hide or jet into places, but these physically crawl. Yeah, you think about a stable ecosystem that doesn't really change much over time. It's like the burrows the Aranavega are in, where it's the same thing, just a little more humid, a little bit more dry. It's not like there's plants popping up and then disappearing, or much else happening. There's just sort of poop that rains down occasionally. Hello, Chris. Good to see that you're alive in 2023 in the live stream. Good to see. Roach ecotype vivarium says some eggs with Blabrus giganteus or some other Blabrus, and Ischnoptera rufa and philodendron. Yeah, it could work. I think that could work. Yeah, there's a lot to think about. I mean, just look at my really low quality, low effort crested gecko vivariums over there. You can just slap a pothos in with a lot of things, and they'll do fine. You just have to make sure that the roaches are fed in some way or another. But yeah, making a self-contained ecosystem is with various animals is quite the task. Hello, Junior. Good to see you in here as well. Had quite a few people in tonight for the first one of 2023. While we have a lot of people and while it's on my mind, I think it'll be next week or the following week will be the guest live stream with Kim Wisman, and he is going to talk about, let me pull up an email that he had sent me with a vague outline discussing the values of getting out into the field, insights it provides into the lives of species that we have as captives or preserved specimen, how we learn how the real world really works from the real world, discuss how to get into doing field work in a productive manner, taking into consideration driving and other forms of travel, picking destinations, gear, what to do when you're at your destination, safety, returning safely without having a bad experience, as I have had a handful of times. Discuss some wildlife management and recreation regulations. Kim is very well versed on those. Alternatives to bulky or expensive gear and portable electric power, how to hack the process to have a wonderful experience while still traveling light. Discussion of camera choices as well. Kim does a lot of, has done a lot of photography and prints and whatnot. So discussion of camera choices, discuss expenses and provide a sense of what to expect. And then also more specifically discussing selected destinations in Michigan as well as elsewhere in the country that some of these tips may help apply to. So, yeah, Shane, go ahead. You can take your time. I don't know if you should even have predators. Predators add just so much to systems. Like you gotta really take into account a lot of things there. If you go that route, you would probably want to go with a parthenogenetic predator too, so that even if the population drops to 1, you'll still have them going. That Chirinus acosta whip spider is a pretty good choice, I would think. I don't even know if you should go with a vertebrate. Depends on how big the setup's going to be too. You know, a lot of stuff to consider making your tiny ecosystem small. It could be even just a small ecosystem, still a lot to think about. I remember also that aquatic ecosystems tend to be weird compared to terrestrial ones because they tend to have a weird trophic system where there are a lot of predators and not necessarily a lot of prey or things below them. I think that might have been because of just how quickly and how much volume and biomass phytoplankton produce. And I think that explains why they tend to be kind of lopsided, or the scale is different. I just remember that there's a difference between the two of them, and I think that was part of it. Vivarium with centipedes that targets the babies to keep them in check, says Jose, but was used towards isopods. Yeah, that's what'll happen if you get a Lithobius isopod colony. But yeah, it's difficult. I don't think, like, I'm more likely than don't. I don't usually have, like, my predators have permanent cultures of food with them, except for like the Stenocris. But like, I don't even know how well that culture is doing. I remember I was down to 1 because it was too dry or because of transportation damage when I received them last year. So I think I still have one, and there's a lot of dwarf purple isopods in there. So there's that, and there's a couple of, I forgot to turn off the Discord, of course. Couple of something else in another culture I'm trying to think about. I mean, there's some isopods breeding with like my alipes and my Rhysida centipedes, but I don't know if they're slowly losing out to the centipedes, I think. So, hello TJ. We're discussing some Vivaria with roaches and other things in it. Maybe the roaches I mean towards will be less likely to be fed on, have low breeding rates, which is what I need for that niche. Yes, some eggs. I did have a German roach culture that became a breeding container for not for house centipedes, for stone centipedes, Lithobius. And when I tried to put the Lithobius and breed them separately in another enclosure, feeding them pallid roaches, they all died. They just did not culture. They just completely died. So, yeah, I think the German roaches would have been okay if they had more vertical space to get away from the centipedes, but obviously they didn't. And they just got completely wiped out. But maybe if they had a comfortable place they could get up and away and reproduce at, and just, as the population of those grew, they were forced into suboptimal spaces in the enclosure, the centipedes would have had food. But I don't know how that would have worked with the Lithobius per se. But now I do know if there's other Lithobius species I want to breed, that I could breed them in a container in a culture of German roaches without any issues. Actually, some pretty nifty, like brighter orange ones in Arizona that I was like, kind of cool, I guess. But maybe better to spend that effort on something like Forceps. Is it Forceps, the genus for that other centipede? Smooth-tailed Forceps centipede. No, it's Theotops. That was it. Yeah, that'd probably be a better usage of the space and energy to try and breed Theotops, because I think they're smaller. They're bigger than Lithobius, but they're still smaller than what's that other one that I've kept before? Scalopocryptops. Those are pretty cool too. I don't know. Maybe one day again I'll try throwing them in a 10-gallon and hopefully get some results. I did lose some alipes, or lose an alipes flytail centipede maybe a week ago. The isopods in the enclosure then proceeded to devour it. It was a bunch of Armadillidium maculatum and Porcellonides. So much for the protein-hungry Porcellio scaber, so that everything's going to eat a dead thing, doesn't matter what they are. So, but I had also just bought one in Expo, and that thing had to have been a long-term captive since the last import came in, which was probably this year, this time last year, if not a little bit later. So the seller had just been barely keeping it alive. I think I offered them like $10 or $15 for it. It's like, that's how much they usually retail for. I just got it because I wanted to add to the group. So I think that's the one that died in that enclosure. I should do a dig around and see if there's any others. There was another good news that I was going to bring up. The Scurtidae was one thing. Euphoria Inda. I'm at the end of my patience with that species. I really like them. Local breedable beetle, and I had collected like 200 or 300 from my compost last June or July as larvae, reared them in captivity, had like a bunch of adults, and I used substrate from outside. So it was, I had centipedes and mites and all the nature's wonders in a confined space. And so eventually I then I removed all the adults that I could find once they started to emerge, and set them up in a new tank with better substrate, with fresher substrate and whatnot. And nothing for months, because Euphoria Inda, at least the ones in Michigan, seem to require a diapause to reproduce, even though they're found all the way down to Florida now. To be fair, I did not sit on my hands and leave them at elevated temperatures for months, hoping that they'll just break their diapause anyways. They don't really need it. Some things you can do that with. The only example I can think of is Schistocerica americana, the American bird grasshopper. You can just leave at normal temperatures for months. It's possible that hours of lighting might be maybe more important than temperatures for overwintering Schistocerica americana. But anyways, I didn't do that because I was losing so many adults. I figured that they were burning up their fat reserves and they wanted to go into diapause or just something. So I chilled the whole culture and then pulled it out of chilling maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And then I grabbed all the adults out of the container because I want to set them up in something fresh. And I was down to 20 to 30 adults. And then over the last couple of weeks, I've been losing more of them. Some have been dying and falling apart. Some of them had hypopus stage of gray mites on them. I just moved some Stratiolelaps Schaeferi, or not Schaeferi, Stratiolelaps, the used to be called hypoaspis mites, into the container to take care of any of that. And but anyway, so now I'm down to like 10 or less adults, and it kind of sucks. And I was just ready to just trash it and be completely done until I go out and dig more out of the compost, or on a nice warm spring day, just wait by the compost for a couple hours for wild Euphoria to emerge or reclose or fly in or whatever. But while digging through the container and looking to get all the adults out and get ready to trash it, I found a couple of eggs, and then I found a couple more. I think in total I found about 20 to 25 eggs. So I pulled those. I'm still going to trash the whole enclosure. I really don't want to give those things a full 10 gallon. If it's going to be like this, I will delegate them to one of these medium-sized faunariums if I must. And so, so I can still move the adults that survived. Obviously, there's got to be a female or fertilized females in the group. I'll move them into one of these containers, keep it kind of warmish, and just sort of keep my fingers crossed. And we'll see if I can get some captive bred ones going. It's a lot of work, and it's just going to be a labor of love, because I don't think there's too many people who are Euphoria Inda enthusiasts out there. Definitely not probably don't want to buy captive bred stock for the price that I need to charge for them, for the work that I have to put into keeping the culture going. But there's also it's such a common species. It's so wide ranging. And then it's like, okay, well, who has them available? Oh, nobody does. Okay. Like, if you want them, you have to go out and catch them yourself, which you need to catch spring adults, or you're going to have to go through this whole thing with the fall caught adults. You're going to have to go out and catch a bunch of larvae, but that's even more difficult to find larvae from them, unless you have a compost pile, and sometimes you can find hundreds like in mine. But my compost is also a lot of wood products and rodent manure mixed together. So it's a very appealing breeding place for beetle larvae. So, but anyways, I wanted to report on that because that was a big find today. Satchel asks how many Euphoria species I have, which I will answer before I look up and read these other things, just because I'm on my tangent about Euphoria. I have Sepulchralis and Inda, and that's it. Alan had sent me the Keys species, but it ends up he reused substrate from another enclosure and ended up being Chloricala, which is another thing that I wanted to complain about, but we'll get to after I catch up on some of the comments here. The chain says that he needs one prolific opportunist that will be active enough during the day to be eaten. I was thinking a Hemithyrsospora for that. I also hope for a compatible Necrophagus roach. Read that Blatella Paraplenia will not only eat the dead, but weak individuals as well. Maybe it was just P. australacei. The enclosure will be at least 100 gallons, but I'm looking for around 300 gallons, possibly completely arid or having a quarter somewhat more damp, with a copper coil with cold flowing water to condense humidity. That's so intense. I think Hemithyrsospora, maybe Paleata. If you're going to do that, try for Paleata. I think you might find some value in the Ectobidae species Malaysia because they can breed very quickly and they can adjust to different conditions. They're a little bit more forgiving, maybe not necessarily more forgiving than Hemithyrsospora Paleata, but I feel like they have more potential in this context. We also, I guess, don't know why Hemithyrsospora have the markings that they do. It could just be Batesian mimicry, but I would try maybe some feeding trials with Paleata and nymphs before you go relying on them in that setup, because we can't. I don't know if they're aposematic for a reason or not, or if they have those colors for a reason or not. Other than, again, it could just be Batesian mimicry. All right, spiders love them. Okay, so that's good. CS, hello, says, random, did you get anything lined up for a roach lid for a 10-gallon tank? Yes, I have plenty of supplies for those. If you'd like one of those custom gasketed lids, go ahead and shoot me an email. And I know I quoted somebody else a price for one before, but shoot me a message and I can get you another one if you need it. Allie says, would you ever mantle a video on how you make those enclosures behind you've got the cloth on top? I don't know how to make the holes on the side. Yes, and I really want to do that. I want to get into, now that I'm getting on top of things, I want to get into some actual video content for stuff like enclosures and setups and the whatnot. What I want to get out of the way first, though, is I still need to do the bug room tour. That's still on the agenda. I have not forgotten about that. I have the list of stuff that people wanted to see. And so that is going to take priority over taking the time to make enclosure making videos and whatnot. Also, I'm kind of on top of a lot of new enclosures that I have to make, with maybe like eight little things left. And so I don't really have a reason to make an enclosure and set it up for anything at the moment. But again, I want to get the bug room. I want to do the bug room tour first, and then I can focus on making other videos, including enclosure making. But in short, I have an old glue gun that has a big metal tip on it. And it basically, I use it like a soldering iron, and I will poke it through the this plastic is very brittle for both these and the critter keepers, the faunariums and the critter keepers. The critter keepers is made of even more brittle plastic, but this is still brittle enough that it melts at a very low temperature. So I push that through, sort of hold it for a second. The plastic that has been pushed through sort of forms a ring around the edge of the glue gun, and then I will pull the tip of the glue gun out, remove the ring as quickly as I can so it doesn't harden into place and make it all messy and whatever. And then I will use just a regular, newer functioning high temperature glue gun to adhere the brass screen on the inside. If you adhere the brass screen on the outside of the enclosures, you run the risk of larger roaches can sometimes wedge themselves in there, and they can actually, over time, it might be months, it might be years, it might be decades, but they can actually push the screen out if they have a motivation to. But also, if you put the screen on the outside, it allows any dirt and detritus and stuff from the inside to accumulate there, and that can cause the glue connection to weaken and the plastic not to corrode, but to become worse over time. So I always put the brass, I adhere it from the inside as well. And I use the high temperature glue gun because then it actually deforms and melts the plastic and sort of merges the glue with the plastic to get a better hold. So it'd be something I definitely want to make a good video of. Junior asked to show bug. Sumeg also asked to agree show bug. What's a bug to show? What's a bug to show that I have on hand? I got 2 bugs to show. What is this doing here? You can get back over to there. Out of place. Oh boy. We have Lucid Bug Room Tour. Tennyson says definitely need to get those. Celeopus someday, but can't at the moment since I'm going on a buying cleanse so I can get a car. It's a pretty good reason not to buy anything. Oh yeah, Celeopus. Reminds me I should get those striped-legged Zealous from Florida again when I eventually go back to Florida, southern Florida. Bug Room Tour sneak peek. All right, let's see. Here we got. This is something pretty important. This is the first Megaphasma dentricus that I have hatched from the stock that I received in March. All right, go. Come on. Get the focus on the little guy. Come on. And I've started it. I've tried starting it on rows because I wanted to just see when I received them. The guy had started them on rows. There's only one. I don't really feel like setting up a full enclosure for it, but I'm probably going to end up going outside after the live stream and cutting a little piece off of my decorative red cedar in the front yard to use for it. So it's the first instar hatched 2 days ago. But yeah, hopefully the first of many. And a little bit early. I think they were hatching for the other person I got them from in March, maybe February of last year. He did say usually they hatch all at once, and it usually takes 1.5 years or 2 years, or sometimes takes 1.5 years or 2 years. So this one's early by that metric, but we'll see how it ends up doing, how things end up going. I don't see any bite marks out of the rose leaf from it though, but the abdomen is pretty plump. So maybe they don't even eat for the first instar. Yeah, big stick is what that is. And these are some Grylus from the giant Grylus that Satchel sent me in the fall from Fort something, Alabama. Let's try and get this a little closer. There we go. That's better. From it's not Fort Stockton. Fort Morgan, Alabama is the largest Grylus I've ever seen in my entire life. Huge. And I pulled a couple of them from the hatching cup to grow in here. I just slapped it next to the heat light. It's less than ideal. They're starting to get bigger. They're going to start eating each other soon. But this set is actually going off for genetic work in a week or two. There's some researchers, I probably mentioned this before too, who are doing some genetic work on Grylus. Primarily their focus is something with feminization or masculinization improves reproductive success in female Grylus or something like that. And so they're working with a bunch of different species, and they're also doing phylogenetics for species determination. So this set's going off to there, and the other set I'll use to start a colony to permanently have. Actually, quite a few Grylus going right now, at least 7 species, and I would like to get that even higher over time. I think people will like them. You can basically pick your ambiance sound with different grylus calls, as long as you're not working with a species that has a diapause requirement. So there's two little bugs to show, and they're growing fast, but a lot of grylus grow really fast. Even the ones in Michigan that require an egg diapause, even those grow very quickly. You can get them to adulthood in less than like 2 months. Jojo, we don't know what species that is. It's definitely not Pennsylvanicus, and it's not anything in the clade of species that have diapausing eggs. That's been shown to be a distinct genetic lineage from all the non-egg diapausing grylus. Does anybody have higher termites, or have any been cultured? What grouping do the higher termites belong to? Let's see. What is the difference between higher and lower termites? Termitidity. Let's see who's in the termitidity. See what Bug Guide says for termitidity. Tenurostratermes, Anoplotermes, Amitermes, desert termite. Oh, I've seen Amitermes before, maybe. It's like familiar to a lot of stuff I've seen in Arizona. You know, I have a small culture of termites from Paradise, Arizona. And I wonder if that's this genus, this was it Nathametermes or Amitermes? I have to see, but I have those going. I have never made crickets fight because I think I tried to when I was younger. I think I read about that being a thing in Eastern cultures, and I tried to fight male crickets, and it just never worked. I think it's because you have to have them. They have to be in like a calm state before you introduce them. Otherwise, they're flighting instead of fighting. But yes, Shane, I do have. So for termites, since they are roaches, and I did list them last year on my cockroaches, the cultures list. I think I had Zootermopsis on there. Zootermopsis were doing fine, and then they crashed. I think they dried out, so I need to get more Zootermopsis again. I wonder. I think they might also have a preference for brown rot wood, which I now have a means of making and acquiring reliably. And so I really want to get Zootermopsis again. What a cool termite that's just basically a cockroach. So I have a colony of Reticulotermes erinicola, which may or may not be a valid species, but if anything, it's an ecotype of Reticulotermes from the dunes on the west side of Michigan. And so I have 2 colonies, no confirmed offspring in either yet, but I have raised this particular species ecotype for about 2.5 years before and got continued reproduction. And again, they dried out during a stressy depressy time or something like that. So I have the husbandry down. I just need the cultures to pick up. So I have a small culture, which is with me here in the office, and then I have a huge culture downstairs, which was kind of cheating because I grabbed the whole piece of wood they were in instead of like the first time I collected them in 2018, where I grabbed, I think, 12 to 15 individuals I found under a cottonwood branch and started a colony of hundreds with that. But so this is a smaller culture that is more in line with the way that I originally started them in terms of the numbers. It was very low numbers. They have not gotten to the point where there are trails everywhere. They don't seem to have run out of their food to get to that point or really have a big need for food to do that. But I did confirm, because I slated this container for destruction like a month ago, and I cracked it open to like see if anything was happening, and yeah, they were still in here and they had formed more chambers and stuff. They're just not going out foraging very far in here. The thing I found with a lot of termites is they actually like a lot of ventilation. And so I've tried to keep termites in smaller closed containers and they just mold over and die. And so I have these reticulatomies going. I have that colony from Paradise, Arizona that's doing well that I don't know the identity of. Do I have more than that? I need to get Reticulatomies flavipes in the strictest sense. Probably something I'm going to try to do this summer from somewhere in Michigan or a little bit south of Michigan. And then I have a species from Key Largo. It's not Reticulatomies. And this has been going since the March Florida trip of 2021. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was a nuptial flight inside the container, and now there are some paired dielates forming little chambers on the sides. So I think it's one of those species that does not have a very rigid caste system, and these may be the nymphs that I originally collected that may have reproduced or had gotten tired of waiting, got tired of there not being a king and queen, and had a nuptial flight paired up and are now going to start subcolonies within the container. Hello, termites, says Altered Pants. Tennyson says, can Leptorine be safely kept with Gromphidorine without risk of hybridization? We don't know. I'm inclined to say yeah, but I also kept Gromphidorine and Ailuropida together and ended up with hybrids. So I'm just kind of like, don't keep any hissers together. There should probably be some controlled experiments between Elliptorina and Gromphidorina before trying to keep them together, I guess. But they should be fine. There seems probably enough distance between those two lineages. But again, you'd think that with Ailuropida, nope. So Junior says, sorry for the random unrelated question, but does anyone have a good source for rotting wood logs? The woods. Do you need them in what state? Actively rotting or already rotted? Or what are you looking for? Are you trying to make or have white rot wood or something else? Somebody asks, how do you destroy cultures? I have a deep freezer, so I will, depending on what I'm destroying, I will either use the deep freezer or I will use scalding or boiling water to destroy the contents of a container. I live in a dead oak forest. My yard is rotted wood, says Jane. I do as well. I have, but I need so much white rot wood that I've been propagating my own using some excess bags of mycelium that I receive of miscellaneous white rot fungi, and then inoculating wood pellets with that and letting them age, which makes, was it Kenichi or whatever it's called? I've seen it spelled and said like 20 different ways. But it's all it is it's just a white rot fungus that has actively colonized wood. So I get it overstock, and therefore it's whatever the company has extra of, and I just have them send me all their bulk extra stuff they just want to get rid of. It seems like it's usually a pleurotus, but there's been a couple of other things mixed in there. But then I inoculate wood pellets with that, and then let it percolate. Just let it sit for a couple of days or weeks or however long is necessary, and then you end up with your own homemade white rot wood. And that's what I've been using for pretty much everything. There are, according to Kai, some beetles that will only lay in solid logs and stuff like that. And I don't think they care if it's a log or it's not. They probably care about the firmness of the material. And so I'm going to give my hands at breeding some of the pickier native Dorcas, the ones from the United States, Parallelus and Brevis. And instead of offering them logs like they're supposedly the only thing they'll lay in, I'm going to make some white rot containers, the Kenishi and Kenshi, and pack it really tight and introduce the females, because I had very good luck with Dorcas titanus doing that. I got lots of larvae out of my Dorcas titanus. And yeah, I'm probably going to produce some more Dorcas titanus castanicolor soon. My only problem is I have a bunch of adult females, but none of my males have wanted to pupate for some reason. So I already have adult females. 20 in chat right now. Awesome. What a great way to go into 2023 with 20 people in a general live stream in a wiggle. So yeah, I'm hoping that I'll get some good yields out of Dorcas parallelus and brevis. That way, if I can get some fresh wild pairs this spring, I have a couple. Dorcas antaeus. Oh, that was the species I was told is supposedly kind of difficult, but I mean, at this point, it's just getting an adult pair, because again, I took my Dorcas titanus castanicolor males, put them in big containers of just full of white rot fungus, and they've shredded up through it, and they've gotten quite cozy, but they don't seem to be making pupal cells. They have plenty enough space in there to make pupal cells. I'm tempted to cool them, but the females didn't need to be cooled. So why would the males need to be cooled but not the females, unless the females aren't going to be reproductively active unless they're cooled? And in the wild, the males are shorter lived. There's something, I'm going to look up Dorcas titanus castanicolor on iNaturalist. It's the South Korean subspecies. Give this a look. Lots of observations. That's good. That's very good. Let's go to the species level and see what's going on. Oh, they have it listed as Ceragnathus titanus. Does that mean the Dorcas in North America are the actual Dorcas? Taxonomy. Castanicolor. Castanicolor has a lot of observations too. Seems to pop up from the records. It seems they're mostly from peak activity in July, observations from May all the way into October, it seems. And those October ones, are they alive? Or are they dead? That one's a dead one. That one's a live one. Okay. That's alive. That also appears to be alive. Oh, no, that one's dead. That one's dead. That one's alive. So yeah, one of these days I'll go on a rant about my experience with beetles. Actually, not to spoil anything, I have an April Fool. I always do a little tiny something for April Fools. I have a little April Fool's joke planned for this year, and I'll probably follow it up with just a light critique or a light analysis of my experience over the last year and a half working with more beetles, and kind of examining some things that I've learned and some criticisms that I have and some other stuff. Yeah, but I'll save that for April. For now, I'm still in the process. We'll see if these Dorcas titanus ever freaking enclose. But I know people don't cool their titanus in general. Kai didn't mention anything about cooling them, and yet people were able to have adults and reproduce to make the stock that I have. So maybe I just have to keep being patient and waiting, I guess. But anyways, other beetles, Pachnota skulka are doing very well. I think that the Esculca like dry air, because in the summer they don't seem to do as well. I found a couple of adults in pupal cells that had succumbed to fungus. I don't think it was trichoderma, but some of them would have like a yellow fluffy fungus on them. So I think that they don't like the extra humidity that is around during the summer. I also didn't have them in as large of an enclosure as I do now, but from the I don't know, maybe I had only 7 to 15 adults left as of like a month ago. And I dug through the substrate and I've got a lot of eggs. Haven't found larvae yet, but that again was about, I don't know, maybe 7 to 10 days ago that I found the eggs. So I'm not concerned about losing the culture. But they're doing really well. I haven't had any adult losses. Again, lots of eggs. I did change the substrate from a primarily wood one to a very aged compost, which may have made the difference. See some discussion of rainbow stags. I did recently get some rainbow stags as well. And if anybody's interested, well, I mean, 2 weeks ago I gave some away. Chain was the lucky recipient. But I do have some rainbow stags available on the website if anybody is interested. They're on the, let's see, what page is that? The new species, collecting trip finds, wild caught, and miscellaneous availability page, along with some Goliath larvae. But oh man, I think I'm almost done dealing with Goliaths. We'll see how any extras from this batch that I have do or don't do. Blapstinus, I need to restart the Blapstinus from Bilus. Cotinus Metabolus. Kai was Kai. I'm gonna give you a hard time, Kai. Kai was telling me that Cotinus Metabolus. Oh, it's so easy. They pupate in frass. How could you fail with them? They're so easy. They pupate in anything. Well, I had them at low population density in their frass. It wasn't even mostly their frass. It was about maybe 25% frass and 75% good, usable, topsoil-y, composty substrate, the same stuff that they've been feeding on and doing well in for months. And I went through that and I picked out the ones that I had left in that setup. And like most of them were like on the verge of death. There were no pupae anywhere, not even in the deepest regions of the substrate. And so I took the ones that were still salvageable, and I threw them in a 32-ounce deli cup with some damp sand, and they all burrowed down to the bottom, and they've all made pupal cells. So yeah, Kai, just saying, probably should not let them try to pupate in their frass or in non-sandy materials. I did use clay last year. I will say last year clay did work for them as well. That's what I had found them in the wild, but I don't see why clay would work and sand wouldn't. They can probably bind the particles with their saliva just right with either of them. So, but before that, I had taken the bulk of the larvae that I had captive produced, and I put them into a large bucket of, again, with damp / moist sand. And I did give them some food on the top. They will actually crawl from below and eat food that's been placed on the top, which is very handy in this situation where I'm just prepping them to get to pupating. And so now I'm going to wait until probably the beginning of March, and then I'll go digging around in there. And that's right around the time last year that I started getting adults, and I extracted them from their pupal cells, and I thought that was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. They were just fine with that. And I ended up getting good reproduction. So that's what I'm going to do this time. And I will be, boy, it's very noisy today. I will be pestering people for Cotinus nitida next summer. I will definitely want to work with those and get larvae out of them. I had caught, I think it was somewhere between 7 and 10 with Kai in Tennessee last July, using this hat to knock them out of the air and catch them. But I set them up in the same setup that I used to get eggs out of Cotinus metabolus, and I got no eggs. So I think that we caught all males. Again, we didn't catch that many, and they all had the behavior of they were flying around, so females may not be quite as inclined to fly as much as males are, so you don't have to go and look for mates like the males do. So My boy is being very noisy here. You want to come in here? You want to come in? Come on in. Come on in. There you go. Oh, poor little whiny baby there. Now you're stuck in here. Now you're trapped. There we go. Say hello. Look at the dog. The dog is here. Yeah, I'll do a bit on the the other beetle that I want to complain about. I want to also say we will be doing a dog stream eventually, maybe around this guy's second birthday. We'll do dog stream. You want to go on your stream? Yeah. No, he's like, don't do that. I don't like that. What happens if I stop? Are you gonna stare at me? No, you gotta stay in the warm room now. That's your fate. You chose this. Very mammalian. Let's see. Dorcas antias that should pupate soon, says Allie. Tennyson, the U.S. native Dorcas are Parallelis and brevis, and not bug, but I approve. Any plans for a girlfriend for the pup? Yes, I was looking into a girlfriend for him who was born in like September, maybe it was November, and was sort of working on the stages of doing that, and then found out that she was going to be very, very, very expensive because they closed the import on dogs. It's much more difficult to import dogs at the moment, and may remain that way. So a lot of people have raised the value of their dogs, so that option was out. It seemed a little bit much, even considering that. Come here, good boy. Seemed a little bit much, even considering that that piece of information. So then I contacted another person who had a puppy available. Beautiful little female puppy, just the cutest, most adorable eyes and the floppiest little intact ears. And I was, I'm in love. This is such a cute puppy. I love this puppy. Contacted her, discussed the pedigrees, and found out that she was Victor's cousin. So her grandfather is Victor's dad. So we're not going to have that. Can't have that. So my quest continues. And since the dogs usually go into heat in the late summer, fall, and then again in the spring, early summer, there's a good chance that I won't be able to track down a girlfriend until the spring/summer litters start to become available. But I'm actively doing it because he needs a girlfriend, and he's actually I think it's just this month coming up on he is allowed to breed at 20 months. So, but yeah, we'll have a dog stream another day where I discuss this boy and everything about this boy. But anyways. The beetle. Anybody here have experience with Chlorocala africana camerunica? Or I don't even know what the genus what the other genus name is. There's another genus they use for this. There's that the Ortsini, the very beautiful purple and blue flower fruit beetle. But anyways, again, I received these Chlorocala from Alan because he thought they were Euphoria because he had reused the substrate, and then he was going to send me some Euphoria larvae from the Keys, and they ended up being the Chlorocala, which I didn't really mind because I wanted to work with the Chlorocala again. But everybody who's gotten these has not been able to get larvae out of them. Alan got the one group of larvae. It wasn't even very much for what you'd expect from a small, very quick growing beetle. But we can't figure out what we need to do to get them to oviposit. And that's, now you want to go out? Now you want to leave the room. Okay. Go on. We can't figure out what we need to do to get them to oviposit. I personally have tried. I've tried white rotted wood. I've tried the mycelium infested wood, the Kenshi Kanishi. Alan was using his potting soil that seems to work for pretty much everything that he breeds and seems to be what got the first batch of eggs. I tried Kai told me that sometimes seedlings will drag pieces of leaves down to lay the eggs in, or wrap around the egg, or put near the egg, or pack near the egg to give the larvae food when they hatch. I tried that. Nothing. So I'm at my wit's end, and the thing is, if my husbandry were completely wrong and screwed up for them, I would have anticipated that my adults would have died very quickly and they would be in poor condition. But I think they closed in October or something like that. And I just lost the last male a couple of days ago, and the males would be the shortest lived. So that makes the males being the shortest lived of the two sexes. They lived a long time, and my females are still very vigorous and lively, no doubt have been fertilized, but have to figure out what they want. The person who originally produced them also lost his colony, or supposedly originally produced them. I don't know any more details than that. He sent some pictures of his setup. He said, "Oh, it was wood that I collected outside or whatever." But we can't figure out what it is. And Alan is trying the potting soil again and doesn't seem to be getting any success. And I'm also giving them heat, and they've got fruit jellies, and they've got actual fruit, and they got all this stuff. So today I switched them over to my last resort, which was some sterilized compost / topsoil from out in the yard. So it worked for the Pachnota Skulka to give them a little boost. It's what I used originally for the Euphoria sepulchralis, which I now have on pretty much anything. I don't think I can kill that colony anymore. But it's it's very high, very rich in organic matter. There's so much stuff that lives in it outside. The wild Euphoria lay in it, and it's got a touch of sand from earthworms, going up and down in the soil column, and pooping out sand and soil they've eaten further down in the ground up in the compost. And so I'm wondering if that sandy component will encourage them to lay, if maybe that's what they wanted a substrate that they can burrow into and kind of wedge themselves into tightly, but not necessarily get constricted by or get stuck in. So we're going to see if this final effort works to get eggs out of these things, because I am sick and tired of this. And Kai was like, "Oh, I hate that beetle. Oh, you couldn't pay me enough to keep that beetle." And then Alan gave the last of his adult beetles to Kai to try and get them to breed, and Kai took them. And I have a leaf layer. I have a leaf layer on top of that. I just added a leaf. I took the leaf layer from the old setup, which was well composted, basically flake soil, but there was also the Kinshia component to it. And I did move the leaf layer to the new enclosure. And it's the same type of leaves that I use for everything. The very reliable, well-aged, tannin-leached oak leaves. So this is my last effort. I really like the beetles because they're shiny green. They are supposed to have a short lifespan or a short life cycle, but have not. And so I would really like to get them going and crack whatever the secret is to producing them, because I would one day like to keep that Ortseni or any of the other blue varieties. Speaking of other fancy beetles, this will be the last one, and then we will close out the stream. Unless Chain, let me touch a little bit on the stuff with your situation, Chain, really quick while I can think about it, because this will just talking for 2 minutes will be so much easier than typing. I think Nocticola is a good choice. I have a feeling you may even want to look into or talk with me a little bit more about the species Florida. They were ant commensals in the wild. They in my opinion, they're most likely a different species than species Malaysia, radically different habitats. But the species Florida may be a good thing for you to look into for an Nocticola, for something more out and about and reproductive. Again, if you like Hemithyrsospora, TJ gives the second on the Hemithyrsospora being a good choice and not being toxic or anything like that. I think you might find the Ectobidae species Malaysia a bit more useful in that situation for generating biomass, especially if you're going to include a predator in there. For something large, you could even consider Macropenesthia. Maybe you just want a bigger, slow breeding thing. And honestly, over time, I'm feeling like Macropenesthia, this kind of makes sense given their habitat, but they will take it drier than they will take it moister as a general observation. I would say they are more tolerant of drier conditions than they are of more moist conditions. For other roaches, I guess it also depends on what inputs you're going to be. If you're going to do any inputs into this, and if it's just going to be food, you can look into some other blabberus and things like that. I will say, I think huntsman spiders, huntsman's not necessarily genus Oleos or whatever it is now, but Heteropoda, I think, are supposed to be cockroach specialists or cockroach preferers. Might be something to consider. Maybe if you're going to have wood in the enclosure, working in some, talking to me about the reticulotermes or maybe those Arizona termites. Haley D, that's a new name. I don't think I've seen you here. Welcome to the Roach Wiggle. How long can a cockroach last without food? Depends on the species, the life stage, etc. I would think that a fattened up adult male hissing cockroach at room temperature could probably last 6 months or maybe more without food. There are plenty of roaches that probably have a long period of time where they just do not eat because of the climate where they're found. So like Ectobius pallidus have probably been off food and dormant since early November or October even in Michigan, and they probably will not eat much or do anything until April or May. So that's like 6-7 months where they'll still drink water. But yeah, it really depends. You've got some other things like a Hemithorsassera Hemithorsassera vittata may only be able to last a couple of weeks without food, or even less than that. Or what's the flimsiest pathetic male cockroach? Compsodius schwartzi adult male. I don't think those things could last very long without any sort of resources. I don't think that they're even meant to last very long. It's like some Aeronavega adult males too are like that. The beetle guy. Hey guys, I don't think I've seen the beetle guy here either. Got quite a few new people. Main grains will be Plantago, which roaches love. They grow fast too with a Flagstaff sand substrate. Yeah, lots of new people. Wonderful. Unfortunately, we are coming up on when I usually try to wrap up the streams, but it'll be same time, same place next week. Possibly either next week or the following week, we will have our guest Kim Wisman talking about collecting and some miscellaneous other bug and other bug experiences. Drew's Tiny Critters, another new person for 2023. The beetle guy. We are getting to the point where there's so many people that I'm having a hard time keeping track. You know what the other thing is avatars that stick out. Some eggs, your avatar is very memorable. Junior, yours is too. Is that a Eucharidia? But some of the ones that are an image in a center or something like that, like, it's kind of hard to remember. Even Chris kind of took me a while to remember what just Chris's presence, because he just has a C next to his name. Can't even find him right now. So my apologies. But I can treat you like a newbie and make a big deal about it. Mine is a P Metallica tarantula. See, Drew, that to me, it kind of looks like, what does that even look like? It kind of looks like a little anime character in a hoodie with like two like buns on their head. So yeah, I have to really squint to look in at some of these because they show up so small here. I definitely see the Metallica now, but yeah, it's very hard. And I gotta update my little thing to fill the circle more. Yeah, I think in the coming months I'm gonna do an update to the Roach Crossing logo maybe. just there's a couple of things I have to factor in for that before I push that through. I gotta pick one. I gotta redesign it. I gotta do the font. I gotta do the text. Oh, it's a lot. Mine is a jumper from you. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I see that the face now. Again, these things are the little avatars are only like it's like 5 millimeters across. I have to see. You guys can probably see me squinting trying to see them. So, but yeah, I think this has been the longest live stream in a while. And what was the last beetle subject you were going to mention? Thank you, Allie, for reminding me. I have had good success with Cedoniscoma speciosa jaucelini. They are the rainbow flower beetles, and I have gotten a good amount of larvae from them. I've sent out some larvae to some people. The adults, it's actually, I was kind of anticipating them to be more on the scale of how Pacnoda or something works with in terms of adult lifespan and larval growth and whatnot. But they seem to be more like a temperate rutiline instead of a cetonine, in that seems to be one generation per year. The adults, well, unlike the rutilines, the adults seem to be very long-lived. So I had my adult Ceanoniscoma popped up in July. I think it was July or August, right before I went to Arizona. I remember seeing adults and being like, "Oh no, I'm going to have adults while I'm gone. This is awful. Like, I'm not going to be able to feed them fresh stuff or something." And they were fine. So I got a good number of larvae, not a flood of larvae as I would have hoped, but I got enough larvae again to make some available to other people and to hold back a larger group for myself than I originally received and all that jazz. I am currently working on producing. I've moved the remaining adults. I've only lost 2 or 3 adults, and I definitely lost them for my fault. I didn't refresh the jelly, or I didn't put a piece of apple in a reasonable amount of time, and the adults desiccate. Although it's also possible, now that I look at them, I think all the adults that died might have been males. So, but anyways, I put them into a new fresh setup with some good substrate, and we'll see how that goes. I'd like to. I'm trying to get a couple more larvae. I think the other enclosure that I have of them, I've decided, okay, this is my holdback larvae. I'm going to try and keep anywhere from like 12 to 15, and now anything after this I will be able to make available again. So unfortunately, it does seem like it's going to be a once a year type thing of offering larvae. Maybe I'd even go out and offer, go on a limb and offer some pairs, an adult pair if I had extras after closure. But they do seem to need to be cooled to get the larvae to pupate, which is, it's annoying, but they're very beautiful beetles. They're long-lived. I'm more than happy to do a little bit extra for them, and they're not as annoying as the Euphoria have been, fortunately. Euphoria Inda. But anyway, so I'm very happy with how that's worked out, and I want to put that out there. If anybody here wants to work with those speciosa, they're the pure Gelsellini, so they're the rainbows with the red pronotum, the green elytra, and the blue legs and other body parts. There may be some more available soon-ish. So, Allie, shoot me an email. I'm going to catch up on some of these things here. TJ has gotten some Pseudoglomerus magnifica cuckfuong from Junior, who's the source of mine as well. And also, apparently, TJ also has the Chinese copper magnifica wood locality data. Mwahahaha. Mine have not. I moved them into a larger enclosure. I'm wondering if I've lost a couple of the larger ones because they were older females that haven't been able to adapt to the new enclosure that I put them into. But I'm sweating a little bit with my Pseudoglomerus. I did get a couple of babies, and I was happy about that. But I looked, and I didn't get nearly as many babies as I should have gotten. And so now I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of holding my breath and tensing up a little bit and hoping that this isn't the beginning of like a colony collapse, which, on the same time, the Paraspherus punctatus are doing very well. And I've had a lot of good success with a bunch of other roaches I was kind of holding my breath on. And we have some other lovely roaches that have popped up in culture lately that have made me extremely happy. But just trying to deep breath and just sort of take the wins and take the losses as they are. So I'm just going to do what I can to try and get the Magnifica back on track, as I already sort of did. But Beetle Guy says, what type of invert do you think could help control the population of pet terrestrial gastropods without hurting the adults or killing off all of the offspring? I don't know, because a lot of snail things just kind of go crazy with killing things like those. The carabids that eat snails will just massacre tons of them. You could try a rosy wolf snail. Flaming salamander, definitely a new name. Welcome. For orthopterans, I have quite a few Pseudophilus going. I have Agassizi and Chiricahua available. I may have some other genre of. I just got some Pseudophilus californianus in, and some very pretty Pristopseudophilus species. And I didn't realize Pristopseudophilus, or at least this species, the adults have a rainbow glow or like a rainbow luster to them, which is really cool. So I don't have very high hopes for the Pristopseudophilus, though. I don't think they're going to culture for me. But if they do, that'd be great. Meanwhile, the Pseudophilus californianus, the female is like almost identical to Pseudophilus chiricahua, and I've done phenomenal with that species. So I'm hoping that the Californianus will culture similarly, and the males are pretty cool. Pyralis, yeah. The males are pretty cool. They have big heads, so that was pretty fun to see. Other orthopterans, I forget about these. I have a colony, or I have a group of horse lubbers from. Kai gave me an adult female horse lubber, not this fall, but the fall before, and I got it. She oviposited several times, and then in September, maybe it was October, I had a hatch, and it's just like it takes so long for horse lubber eggs to hatch. It's ridiculous, and so I got a hatch, set them up, and in one of these Aeronavega tanks, because I figure, they'll eat greens and poop out stuff, and the Aeronavega will eat the poop. And yeah, they're alive. They're doing okay. They're like half the size of wild horse lubbers. I put a fair amount of effort into raising them, but I don't know. But anyways, they're still alive. And then I got recently a hatch of Loxahatchee Romalia microptera, the eastern lubbers. So I've got a bunch of nymphs of those. Anybody who's interested, unfortunately, they literally the second they hatched, they were all spoken for. So I'm going to, I'm going to have my holdbacks and whatnot. And with the extra rack in the basement, it's supposed to be a beetle rack, but I might throw some more orthopterans on there. I think that this summer I'm gonna put a ton of effort into really getting lubbers going, because there's a lot of interest in them, and every year I kind of drop the ball with them because it can be so sporadic with stuff like saving the eggs and then waiting for the hatch and all that stuff, and then having to just so much micromanaging and picking the poop out of the hatching container and then storing it somewhere that's not too hot, not too cold, and waiting. And it's just a lot. But also this is what I do. And I'm in a pretty good place with automating or streamlining a lot of my husbandry practices. And there's a allotted space in the basement for something that I will need to look at daily. So I think this summer I'm going to try and really put some extra effort into keeping lubber lines going in good numbers. And I think the horse lubbers kind of have got me into thinking about that because of how it just took forever for the eggs. Honestly, guys, I'm probably going to eat my words for this later when I go to sell horse lubbers, but I don't know why anybody would want horse lubbers over eastern lubbers. They're smaller. They take even longer to hatch. Yeah, I guess they're kind of cool, but there's like eastern lubbers that look like horse lubbers that are like 4 times the size, or horse lubbers, eastern lubbers that look like horse lubbers. So I don't know. I mean, I guess they were tenacious. They were tenacious enough that like I got a hatch enough to like breed them again, even though I waited like a year for eggs. I don't know. I don't know, guys. And they're pretty cool. I don't think they're prettier though. I don't think that they're prettier. The Loxahatchee lubber, Eastern lubbers are like one of the prettiest just bugs of all time, just in general. Just I'll find a picture. I'll go on iNaturalist and find a picture from that area. Huh. No images from there. Interesting. Oh, this is kind of annoying. Oh, there we go. Cancel out the custom boundary. Well, this one's just in somebody's backyard. Of course, that's how it is. Oh, these are all pictures of nymphs. I gotta find a good picture before I close out the stream. I can't just make my bold claims and then not back them up. Another nymph, another nymph, another nymph, another nymph. But does nobody take pictures of adult lubber grasshoppers? That's not the right color. Oh, that's pretty close. Yeah, that'll do. I guess that picture will do. Copy image link. Bada boom, bada bing. This isn't even a good individual. I've tried. Oh gosh, toad lubbers. No, I don't even want to try toad. I barely have horse lubber husbandry perfected. I don't even want to like think about trying with toad lubbers again. Bigger isn't always better. That's what my girlfriend tells me at least this year. But like, look at this. Look how beautiful this is. It's orange. And again, this is a poor quality individual. I've seen them so much more vibrant than that. I think on the now defunct Roach Crossing Facebook page, is there lubber orange? I think there's a picture on there somewhere showing. Oh, that's a good picture. Oh, these are pictures from when I started initially blogging. Here's a good one. So this is the orange color form, such an intense orange, but also from the same locality, you get individuals that look like this. Oh, rainbows! I want to try again eventually, Texas ones, but I gotta find a reliable way to overwinter arid grasshopper eggs, because I've done them dry and I've done them moist before, and it just seems kind of like a crapshoot. I might just get so desperate that I do like a huge container to get like a good gradient of soil conditions. Because I have bred or not. I can't take credit for cycling through closing the loop in captivity for rainbow grasshoppers, but I have kept the Arizona and the Texas ones alive for many months, wild caught ones. I've gotten eggs out of them and I've hatched the eggs. And in the case of the Arizona ones, I have raised the eggs up to adults, but I've not closed the loop. It's something I would like to do, but I think it's going to factor into the eggs. It's not even a diet thing. They're very polyphagous. They're very easy. It's just going to be accommodating the eggs to get good hatches. So, longer stream, everybody. However, all good things must come to an end except for cockroaches. Cockroaches are at least approximately 350 million years eternal in depending on where you draw the lines morphologically and phylogenetically. So with that being said, we will wrap up this week's live stream. Thank you to the numerous new people who have popped up. I hope you had a great time on the stream. It was a pretty good stream too. I wish I had a couple more larger bugs to show, but maybe next week, good chance of being the guest stream with Kim. And also, Beetle Guy, sorry. I will remember that you have been here before into the future, and I hope to do the same with the other newcomers. But getting to be quite a few people in here. Last thing, yes, I do take emails. I'll just slap that in here. My email address. I'll slap it right on in here. And I wanted a gentle reminder that we're 3 months out from the next auction. I just thought I'd point that out, that it will be happening in approximately 3 months. I was aiming to do it before Spring Tinley Park, thinking that people would come here and spend their money in the auctions instead of paying $300 an isopod at Tinley Park. But I have a lot of things to plan around then. I have a local expo. I want to go to Alabama. And if I go to Alabama, I will be collecting some things. And then some of those things I would like to make available in the auction. So there's a bunch of dots that need to be collected and line up. And thus, it's looking fairly likely that the next auction would be at the end of March or the very beginning of April. Very in the air, but by mid-February, there should be a hard date for it. It will not... I can't survive another 3-day auction like before, but I think if I can, I'll curate the inventory a bit, and it will probably be a full day, probably a full 12 to 16-hour day, a Saturday or Sunday. It will be a full day. So we'll see how that goes. Realistically, how many of your customers are in the geographic range of Tinley? I don't know, but people go to Tinley specifically to buy things. So there's that. 3 people. Bring some mod help. Malinois Twitch, that's a new name. Welcome to the stream. Just as I'm getting ready to end things. Including Junior. Junior is a very important member of the auction, so it's important that he doesn't go to Tinley, or doesn't spend all of his money at Tinley, I guess. But anyways, with that being said, thank you all for a wonderful long stream. I hope you all have a great week. I really hope that Kim is here for next week or the following week, whatever. He will be here eventually. It'll be a good stream. Bringing some of the old guard in to discuss things and give some tips to some of the even younger guard than myself about going collecting and supplies. And he does have some very good information about especially supplies. The little blacklight things that he told me about were wonderful on the last Arizona trip. Wonderful thing to have. So take care, everybody. I will see you all next week. And until then, may your cultures ever be bountiful.